Let's examine ancient Egypt as the origin of the esoteric mysteries. When we speak of esotericism, whether in the Greek and Roman mystery schools, in Gnostic Christianity, in Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, or in Renaissance alchemy, we often speak in symbols, in secret initiations, in veiled truths preserved for the few. But to understand where this tradition starts, we must go back and begin in the Nile Valley, in one of the world's most enduring civilizations. In ancient Egypt, the myth of Osiris centered on death, dismemberment, and resurrection, and established a religious framework of symbolic rebirth, moral purification, and esoteric initiation into the afterlife. This was not merely a popular story, it was a sacred model for the soul's transformation. Osiris, a divine king, ruled Egypt with justice and wisdom, bringing agriculture and law to humanity. However, his brother Set, a god of chaos, envy, and storm, murdered Osiris, cutting his body into pieces and scattering them across Egypt. The goddess Isis, sister and wife of Osiris, journeyed across the land, gathering each fragment of her beloved. Through divine magic and devotion, she reassembled him, and after conceived their son Horus, who would grow to challenge Set and restore balance. This mythological cycle of death, fragmentation, resurrection, and divine justice became the foundation of Egypt's initiatory religion. The death of Osiris represented not only physical death, but the disintegration of the lower self. His resurrection symbolized the triumph of spirit over matter, of order over chaos, of conscious immortality. With the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE, the cult of Osiris spread throughout the two lands. It gradually absorbed the attributes of regional gods and established Osiris as a central figure in the Egyptian pantheon. By the time of the Old Kingdom, around 2686 to 2181 BCE, Osiris's role as ruler of the afterlife was not just a religious belief, it was a spiritual reality, reflected in tomb architecture, royal ideology, and priestly ritual. Pharaohs were buried not just as kings, but as Osiris reborn. This brings us to one of the most extraordinary religious records in human history, the pyramid texts. Dating to around 2400 BCE, the pyramid texts are the oldest surviving religious scriptures in the world. Carved into the walls of royal tombs, they were never intended for public viewing. They contain sacred formulas, ritual utterances, and transformational spells designed to guide the soul of the deceased through the perilous journey of the afterlife. These were not generalized religious prayers. They were initiatory instructions, likely reserved for royalty and the high priesthood. The pyramid texts articulate a hidden theology, one not about belief, but about becoming. They speak of the soul ascending to the stars, merging with the divine, and navigating a universe structured in metaphysical order. So we've talked about the pyramids. Let us shift momentarily to the Sphinx, that silent guardian whose presence still captivates the modern imagination. The riddle of the Sphinx goes, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at midday, and 3 at night? The answer is man, crawling in infancy, walking upright in adulthood, and relying on a staff or cane in old age. In Greek mythology, the Sphinx presents this riddle to character Oedipus. When Oedipus answers correctly, the Sphinx destroys herself, and Oedipus becomes king of Thebes. This moment represents more than mere cleverness. It symbolizes the triumph of self-knowledge over mystery, the passage through the threshold of unknowing into mastery and rule. But the Sphinx was not born in Greece, it was adopted. 5th century BCE Greeks, like this riddle's author Sophocles, were well acquainted with Egyptian culture through trade, travel, and conquest. The Egyptian Sphinx, with a lion's body and human head, represented not a monster, but a protector, a guardian of sacred space and mystery. Greek thinkers, including Sophocles, were likely aware of these older associations. Their Greek myths blend Egyptian symbols with emerging philosophical themes, creating a hybrid form that preserves the initiatory essence of the original configuration. And what of the early Christians? Were they aware of ancient Egypt's hidden wisdom? Origen of Alexandria, one of the most learned Christian theologians of the 3rd century CE, certainly thought so. He wrote that Egyptian philosophers held profound ideas about the divine, but that they chose to conceal them through fables and allegories, rather than declare them plainly to the masses. This reflects a key characteristic of esoteric traditions, the concealment of higher truths beneath symbolic language. In Origen's view, this was not deception, but protection, a sacred pedagogy for those willing to seek, study, and suffer transformation. We now move into modern scholarship, which has only deepened our appreciation of ancient Egypt's central role in the evolution of the Western esoteric tradition. In 1994, Antoine Faivre, widely regarded as the founder of the academic study of Western esotericism, noted that Egypt serves as a symbolic reference point for esoteric traditions, representing a source of ancient wisdom and a model for initiatory practices. This view is echoed by German Egyptologist John Assman, whose 2001 book, The Search for God in Ancient Egypt, describes how Egypt's temple priesthood upheld a religious system grounded in cosmic order and funerary theology. Their structure was hierarchical, and their transmission oral, their knowledge protected under sacred oaths. Far from being mere functionaries, these priests were initiates, custodians of a sacred science that united metaphysics, ritual, astronomy, and moral law. They did not merely believe in the divine. They preserved and enacted its presence through carefully guarded rites. So, how far did this legacy of ancient Egypt reach? The religious and philosophical traditions of ancient Egypt profoundly influenced the mystery schools of Greece and Rome. Figures like Pythagoras studied geometry and cosmology in Egyptian temples. Plato absorbed Egypt's teachings on the soul's immortality, the eternal forms, and the divine harmony embedded in the cosmos. From there, the lineage of Egyptian wisdom continued, encoded in Hermeticism, echoed in Gnosticism, revived in Neoplatonism, and preserved in medieval alchemy, the Kabbalistic tree of life, the manifestos of the Rosicrucians, and the symbols of Freemasonry. Each of these traditions, in their own way, returned to Egypt as a point of origin, not merely geographically but spiritually. Egypt represented the primordial temple, the hidden grammar of the sacred, and the archetype of initiatory transformation. In the sessions that follow, we will explore each of these later systems: Hermeticism, Kabbalah, alchemy, and more, tracing how ancient Egypt's spiritual DNA was carried across time, reshaped by new cultures, yet never forgotten. The Nile may no longer overflow with sacred offerings, but its current still runs beneath the surface of Western esoteric thought, quietly feeding the roots of the mysteries. Our next videos will begin to follow that current, step by step. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you next time. Find us at joinseek.org.